Everest 2026 is absolutely wild. But I need to start this video today by owning up to something. A few weeks ago, I did a video that said that some Everest guides were poisoning their clients with baking soda in order to make them feel very poorly so that they'd be flown away in a helicopter and go to hospital. They could then claim money from the insurance companies, and everyone was taking a shit. Here's the thing, I accidentally lied to you guys. Because I saw the headlines, I believed them, and I think you probably did too. But it turns out it was someone who heard someone say something. Basically, it was a rumour and hasn't been proven in the slightest. But what has happened is this $20 million insurance scandal, where 33 people have been charged. They were busy forging doctors' signatures, billing $31,000 just for one single helicopter flight. And today I'm going to be looking at other crimes of Everest, not just this. And I'm going to tell you all the details about the insurance scandal at the end of this video. So first of all, we're going to talk about someone who was left to die up Everest by his guide, who by all accounts couldn't be bothered to do anything to help him, who had every opportunity to send a rescue party, but didn't tell anyone. This is Lawless Everest. Right, so the first crime I'm talking about involves someone called Nils Antezana. He was born in Bolivia, but he was based in the United States. And he had decided that in May 2004, he was going to climb Everest. He was 69 years old. He wanted to be the oldest American to summit Everest. So he hired a guide who he had known for a few years, whose name was Gustavo Lisi. Lisi had supposedly claimed that he had climbed Everest before, or summited Everest before. It had been on his website, and he had told people, there were witnesses on the mountain who say he had told them he'd climbed Everest. And he had climbed it, but apparently, according to the person he climbed it with, he hadn't actually summited it. In later interviews, he denied that he had claimed he'd summited Everest. So Antezana, the 69-year-old, had hired this guy to take him to the top of Everest. He thought he was the best person for it. He liked him especially because he was Spanish-speaking and they could speak in their native language. They also took a couple of Sherpa guides up with them. Now here's the mad thing. Antezana kept being left behind, even on the trip to base camp. So you have to go from Lukla Airport to base camp. It takes about 7 to 10 days, roughly. Lisi, the guide, kept leaving Antezana behind, even on this trek. And apparently once they got to base camp and started their acclimatization treks, going from base camp, camp 1, camp 2, camp 3, back down again, he kept being left behind. Other people, other guides had to help Antezana when he didn't know what he was doing. And he was also struggling a lot with altitude sickness. He had gastrointestinal issues. He had diarrhea. He was losing an absolute ton of weight. He was exhausted before he even got to base camp. So they're doing their summit push. He's not had enough oxygen. So between camps 3 and 4, which is what you're doing before your summit push, apparently he wasn't given oxygen. Now Lisi says, he denied oxygen. I told him he should have it, and he said he didn't want it because no one else was having it. Who knows? But apparently other guides say he should have pushed to make sure that Antezana was using oxygen. I don't know what the rules are with this. But essentially by the time he got to Camp 4, Antezana was exhausted. But they went for the summit push anyway. Antezana was so tired. The Sherpa guides were saying, you've got to turn around, you shouldn't be doing this. But him and Lisi, they carried on. They reached the summit, but utterly done in. Now the thing is, climbers quite often reach the summit because of pure adrenaline. But once you got there, and apparently they spent 40 minutes up there, which is not the done thing, 20 minutes max usually, you carry on down and get to Camp 4 as quickly as you possibly can because adrenaline's gone and your body is done in by this stage. Antezana kept collapsing until eventually he wouldn't move at all anymore. He wouldn't even take water. And Lisi left him where he collapsed. Now, he says he was told to leave by the Sherpa guides. The Sherpa guides say they didn't say any such thing to him, so we will never know. But they all spent hours up there, so Antezana was suffering from probably cerebral edema, where essentially he was having hallucinations, he was babbling, he was drifting in and out of consciousness. The Sherpa guides were on their own with him, they stayed with him for hours, but they were starting to really suffer as well, and they left him. So they left him with some extra oxygen, they left him with, one of them gave him their down coat, so he was struggling with cold, So the really heartbreaking bit about this is that he apparently begged them to stay with him, apparently suggesting they should all die together on this mountain. I don't know how true that is, but if it is, I can't even imagine what it must feel like to have left that person there. On the way down, the Sherpa guides found Lisi in a sleeping bag and convinced him to get going because otherwise he'd die too. They all reached Camp 4. Supposedly, no one told anyone about Antezana up the mountain. I'm not sure anyone could have done anything anyway. Apparently the weather turned at this point. Most people weren't reaching the summit. They were staying at Camp 4 and trying a different time. Antezana died on his own on that mountain. Lisi called his mum that next morning to say he'd made it to the summit. He also called his website manager to say he'd made it to the summit. So all that happened, but what he didn't do at that point was call Antezana's family. So they had absolutely no idea that he was dead. In fact, his wife was in hospital at the time, recovering from a small surgery, and she didn't know for 2 days what had happened to him. Now, Lisi said he didn't call because he didn't have the number. He had his own number, but he didn't have other people's numbers. Which, if true, is fair. There are also claims that some of Antezana's equipment was taken before he died. Again, I don't know how true that is, but no criminal charges were brought against Gustavo Lisi. Right, the next crime of Everest is fake summit photos. So people have been climbing some of the way to the top of Everest, not making it, and then faking their photos at the summit. The first one I'm talking about is a man called Narendra Singh Yadav. So he claimed to have summited Everest in 2016, and he had submitted a photo as proof. He'd already attempted twice before, failed due to avalanche warnings, and he was so highly regarded that he won an award at the Tenzing Norgay National Adventure Award. But when you looked at the photo, it looked fake. So his oxygen mask didn't have a tube, and there were no reflections in the sunglasses that he was wearing. So his award was stripped. He was banned from Everest for 6 years. Now in 2022, when he was allowed back again, he actually did summit. He took several guides with him. He made sure it was completely and utterly legit. And he has officially summited Everest now. Possibly more controversial are an Indian police couple. They were married, who wanted to be the first married couple to make it to the top of Everest. Their names were Dinesh and Tariqshwari Ratho, and they had digitally inserted themselves into someone else's summit photos. Now that person saw those photos and said, hang on a second, that's me, but you've just superimposed yourself on there. They were banned from Nepal for 10 years, and they lost their jobs as police officers. The thing is, verification is kind of difficult up the summit of Everest. There's no man up there taking tickets, or a turnstile at the top, or CCTV camera up there. You've got to prove it in different ways. And if you make it to the summit of Everest, there are credentials, right? Your country celebrates you. So there is an incentive to cheat if you don't make it. So another crime is permit fraud. So there's a company called 7 Summit Treks, and they were found to have forged permits for a couple of people that they were climbing with. They used fake letterheads, fake seals. They pocketed $22,000, which should have gone to the Department of Tourism in Nepal. Then they guided these 2 people up without their permits, or with their fake permits. They were investigated and they were fined $44,000. They blamed it on a previous employee. Now, perhaps unsurprisingly, 7 Summit Treks also implicated in the insurance scandal, which of course I'm talking about at the end of the video. Right, another crime of Everest. And I'm seeing a pattern here because none of these are being convicted. Nobody's actually being convicted of these. Is oxygen and supply theft. So bottled oxygen is like gold dust on the high camps. And it is a life-threatening issue. When you steal oxygen from someone, you are potentially making sure they die. So theft of bottled oxygen is happening on high-altitude camps. So it could be because teams are underprepared, they haven't brought enough for their own teams, or just unscrupulous climbers who want a bit of extra oxygen. Couldn't be bothered to bring it up themselves. But you could be putting someone else to death by taking their oxygen away. So imagine doing that. And people also take tents, stoves, cooking gas. Apparently there's a growing trend where people are stealing oxygen, taking it down to base camp and selling it. But the thing is, theft is really difficult to prove up there. Many incidents go unreported. Although some high-profile guides have talked about it, but it's probably still rife. Just one tiny little theft crime that I heard of is Hannelore Schmartz. So Hannelore Schmartz in the 1970s, she climbed Everest but died up on the mountain. And in 1980, her husband found a camera in a Kathmandu market that he believed belonged to her and was on her body when she died. So potentially, someone saw her up there, stole her camera from her dead body and sold it. My brain cannot comprehend this. Okay, this is an insane one. In 2013, there were 3 climbers called Yuli Steck, Simone Moreau, and John Griffith. And they were climbing Everest, but they were doing it at the same time a team of Sherpa guides were fixing ropes for commercial expeditions. Now, these were climbers who knew how to climb without these ropes, so they were going on up ahead of the Sherpa guides. But the 2 groups got in each other's way, and the climbers crossed over the ropes that the Sherpa guides were putting up. Apparently, at one point, ice fell down onto the Sherpa guides, and they got thoroughly hacked off. They believed it was dangerous, they believed it wasn't mountain etiquette, and then when they were all back at a lower camp, apparently a whole group of Sherpa guides, up to 100 apparently, came to these 3 climbers' tents, and they had a fight. There was punching, there was kicking, rocks were thrown, and there were reported threats to kill the climbers. Now, the climbers said this, the Sherpa guides denied it. Other climbers did step in to stop the fight, and the 3 elite climbers hoiked it out of there. They went back down. Now, the thing is, this isn't about a fixed rope. This isn't about a little bit of ice. This is about the fact that Sherpa guides feel completely disrespected by some Western climbers. There is a huge pay gap. The Sherpa guides, they're doing the most dangerous work and getting the least amount of credibility for it. So it's not a shock that there's growing resentment. Right, so now let's look at this $20 million insurance scam, minus the baking soda. Right, I actually want to read this one out rather than memorize it, because the facts are wild and I want to get them right. So there's a network of trekking companies, helicopter rescue firms, hospitals and guides who work together to defraud international insurance companies. And I know what some of you are going to say, it's an insurance company, who cares? Well, it's still illegal and doesn't really help with the whole trust thing, does it? When it comes to trusting your guides if you're going on one of these trips. So guides would exaggerate illness, telling tourists they were dangerously sick even for mild altitude sickness. Some tourists were just simply tired of walking and were presented with the option to get a helicopter and claim on insurance. Now, I have to say, apart from one incident, this was not climbers to the summit. It wasn't Sherpa guides helping people get to the summit. This was expedition companies guiding people to Everest base camp. There was one incident of a Sherpa guide and a climber going to Everest. So one single helicopter journey was billed as multiple emergency evacuations. So a flight typically costing $2,500 was allegedly invoiced at up to $31,000. And I'm laughing because it seems quite surreal, doesn't it? Some flights weren't made at all. Claims were submitted for evacuations that did not happen. Then hospitals created false records. And there were discharge summaries produced and fake signed, by doctors who had no idea that their signatures were being used. This one's mad. One hospital office assistant confessed to submitting his own year-old x-ray from a different hospital and a different condition as fake evidence. This is my favourite bit. CCTV footage was recovered showing foreign tourists drinking beer in a hospital cafe at the exact same time their medical records showed them receiving emergency treatment. They were just drinking their beer, having a wonderful time, claiming some money. There were 171 fake cases in this case, and the total of the fraudulent claims came to nearly $20 million. Now here's the mad thing. This was reported in 2018, but the first charges weren't made until 2026. And then a new government came in. They wanted to stop all corruption, so they started investigating it again. Turns out it's been carrying on since 2018, just still going on. So 33 individuals have been charged, 10 have been arrested, 23, they don't know where they are. Many are believed to be overseas. They're just gone, disappeared, getting away with it. Now the problem is it's damaged Nepal's trekking industry. It's caused insurance companies to stop working with them or raise prices, and it's cast suspicion on the genuinely legitimate guides. So these are the official crimes of Everest. Although, apart from one or two, no one's actually been charged with what they've done. But what about the ethical crimes of Everest? What about the domestic abuse Lakpa Sherpa had? From her husband, lots of people watching, nothing happened. What about that grey area of leaving people up on the mountain? That unwritten code over 8,000 metres? What about the commercialisation debate? How inexperienced climbers are able to get to the summit? Because Sherpa guides and expedition companies are helping them. They're doing everything they can to get people up there. What about all those bodies on the mountain? What about the ethics of using Sherpa guides? So these are potential crimes, don't tend to have any kind of repercussions. Why is it so different on Everest? Why is it so different on a mountain than at sea level? So I've actually gone into some detail about this. So as bonus footage on my Patreon, you can go and have a look at this. At the time of filming, I have a 7-day free trial. So for absolutely free for 7 days, you can go take a look at the bonus footage. In the meantime, please do the normal things. Subscribe, comment, like. Let me know what you think in the comments about which you think is the worst crime of Everest. And what would you do differently? What can you do? Guys, as always, I'm signing off. Stay safe. And if possible, stay at sea level.